Okay, so today it is the birthday of Jeanne Gang, a very important architect, contemporary architect, the founder and yeah, the founder of Studio Gang, quite well known in the field of architecture in the present. So this is the poem. I'm not very sure I was totally right about everything I wrote. I assume certain things. From what I remember, reading an interview with her, her mom was a tailor, and her father an engineer. So this was important for me, and you'll understand why I mentioned this. Anyway, let me begin. I hope my voice is good enough for the task. A poem for Jeanne Gang. But before you see the picture above is a fragment of a wall at Machu Picchu in Peru. And look how the stones are cut. Look at this stone with 9 corners. How could this be? How did they cut these stones? You know, it's a mystery. And it's not the only one. How come that all stones are cut perfectly and perfectly connected with each other? It is incredible. And I will make a reference to this wall. That's why I put this picture here. Okay, I read the poem. I wrote it yesterday, and I asked for forgiveness both to Jeanne and to the gods and to you if certain things I didn't quite put rightly, but there is always time for space for improvement. A poem for Jeanne Gang. I mean, even the name in the United States, it is pronounced Jeanne, but it could also be pronounced Jean, while in France is Jeanne. Anyway, I'll pronounce it both ways. A poem for Jeanne Gang. Your name, Jeanne, inevitably brings to mind and to the heart, actually, that great 19 years old burned to stake by the faithful churchmen, outraged that a mere peasant girl had so much faith that she chose to die for it. She became a symbol of France, together with the great Marianne, who led the revolutionaries towards another fire, but this one legitimate, to burn down Bastille in the name of liberté, égalité, fraternité. Jeanne, the main character in one of the best films I ever saw, if not the very best, The Passion of Joan of Arc by Carl Theodor Dreyer. Your mother was a tailor, Jeanne. I feel, if you allow me, that this simple fact was and is very important for your biography, maybe even more important than the fact that your father was an engineer. From the mother, you most surely received the liking of fabrics and the liking of weaving, architectural weaving. Thus, you serve text, the etymological root from which all linguistic derivations of the word architecture come from. Text, which in the Proto-Indo-European language meant to weave. Yes, to weave. Thus, the second half of the word architecture, that is texture, comes from text, while the first one, arch, in your case probably comes from your father, although he was not an architect but an engineer. But somehow I feel that this was very auspicious, to be born from an engineer and a tailor. I wish I had such a parentage, but I didn't. Anyway, you are an architect who loves to weave, an architect who doesn't ignore ornament, that very ornament banished by laws, although not when he used beautiful marble with its great natural ornaments, just like Mies in his Barcelona pavilion. Ornament. Could we have structure without ornament? Probably not. One needs the other one, just as the engineer needed the tailor. We need both. Architecture needs both. You managed to remain modest, Jeanne. Not an easy task in the field of architecture or in the field of architects, not to speak about being formed to an extent by your working with and for Rem Koolhaas, whose fame does not reside on his modesty, inasmuch as Engel's fame does not reside on his modesty. And he too worked for Koolhaas. Thus, Jeanne, I would ask, modest stars, Why not? Shouldn't we trust them more? We should, although sometimes we did remove their anonymity by naming them. Why do human beings need intensely stars? We blackened the sky. The stars on the sky are blackened by the human visual noise. Who looks at the stars now? Almost nobody. And in a city, it would be indeed quite difficult, if not impossible. And the village Kohlhaas advocated is still quite remote, much more remote than Prada, that's for sure. So the celestial stars are gone, but since we cannot live without something to long for, we invented the human stars. You name them: pop stars, rock stars, soccer stars, Pritzker Prize stars or winners, etc. But are they sufficiently satisfying? Could we compare them with Polaris, Sirius, Orion, Altair, Antares, and so on? But you, Jeanne, although famous, remain modest, very modest, and with a worried look on your face in that beautiful picture on that, this picture showed up here, and then now it's agitating me. Remain modest, very modest, and with a very worried look on your face in that beautiful picture on the railways, quite eligible for a passable but only imagined film by Michelangelo Antonioni. How could one still be romantic building skyscrapers? How could one still be romantic serving capitalistic goals? Is it possible? I don't know. But I feel that being integrated in the system, you do have still another side. The avant-garde, maybe. Maybe the avant-garde, the rebellious one. But in your case, a gentle rebelliousness. I know it is an oxymoron, just like your actionable idealism. But aren't oxymorons expressions of that conjunctio oppositorum the true alchemists search for? Actionable idealism, that is, an idealism that refuses to be trapped in the vicinity of the celestial bodies and instead wants matter here on earth to encapsulate it alive. Yes, an idealism brought down to earth, confronted here now with myriad of limits, with countless restrictions, with the countless misunderstandings, with the countless fears, with the countless conformisms, with the countless pragmatisms, with the countless mercantilisms, that is, with the ubiquitous fear. But idealism is connected with love. As Einstein said, we have to choose between fear and love. And you chose love, that is idealism. But you understood that love just by itself might not be able to materialize itself. It might remain aloof and ethereal. So you decided to work for an actionable idealism. That is, an idealism which would trap, so to speak, the celestial stars and bring them down to earth. In what form? In many forms: justice, creativity, poetry, architecture, inspiration, exuberance. And spirit, of course. I look back on your work and I see geometry, but I also see l'esprit de finesse, as Boileau called it. Maybe sometimes l'esprit de géométrie is a little bit stronger than l'esprit de finesse. Maybe, and only sometimes. Then, of course, we would need a more persistent presence of the tailor. Yes, the beautiful tailor, with her beautiful fabrics, with her beautiful weaving, the tailor. What about architectural tailors? What would you think of this concept? What if an architect, man and woman alike, would work as tailors? How would their buildings be like? To be a tailor in stone, working with stone. Could we tailor stones? But is it not what an architect is supposed to do? Although the secrets of those Incas, of the Machu Picchu, we lost. How did they cut those stones? Were they also animated by an actionable idealism? Perhaps, although that actionable idealism was born, no doubt, from vita contemplativa. And it was vita contemplativa that chose to marry for infinite glory vita activa. We need both, just as we need structure and ornament, the engineer and the tailor. Amen. Okay, so this was an attempt at poetry, and now I begin with a presentation, with a PowerPoint presentation. Jeanne Gang, Studio Gang. They identify, of course, because with each other. I mean, Jeanne Gang is Studio Gang, and Studio Gang is Jeanne Gang. But of course, Studio Gang has many other people, and her works wouldn't come into being without those many other people. She said, without an intellectual construct, life is boring. An interesting way to put it. But in essence, she says that without a mental life, with a life of what we think, we imagine, life could be indeed quite prosaic in the bad sense of the word. So she was born on March 19th in 1964. So she's today 57 years old. Is an American architect and the founder and leader of Studio Gang, established in 1997, an architecture and urban design practice with offices in Chicago, New York, and San Francisco. Also in Paris now. International, this I took from Wikipedia. It's not quite up to date always, Wikipedia. Internationally renowned for the Aqua Tower, Gang has recently completed projects such as Solstice on the Park, Writers Theatre, the University of Chicago campus, North Residential and Dining Commons, City Hyde Park, the Arcus Center for Social Justice Leadership at Kalamazoo College, and both houses on the Chicago River. Her Aqua Tower in Chicago is currently the tallest woman-designed building in the world, a distinction soon to be passed to the new Vista Tower, also of her design, nearby. Here she is. Happy birthday, Jean, or Jeannie, or Jeanne. I like this picture of her, and I mentioned it in the poem. I thought that Michelangelo Antonioni, quite a famous director, could have made a film just with such a scene. In her office, I imagine, or maybe at home, I don't know. Here she is working on a model. Here it is the poster for one of her lectures. She lectures often to various universities, prestigious universities. This had an intriguing title, What Mammals Want. I don't know what mammals want. I didn't quite know what mammals were either. So here I read, any of a class of warm-blooded higher vertebrates as placentals, marsupials, or monotremes that nourish their young with milk secreted by mammary glands, have the skin usually more or less covered with hair, and include humans. So we are mammals. Drawings, some drawings of Jeanne Gang. This is a so-called organic drawing of a maple tree. And you'll see in her architecture reflections of this drawing. But she also has the other side, which is, very, cerebral in a way, and very related to geometry and calculations. And she's quite good at it as well. In a world still dominated by men, to have a lady, a woman achieve what she achieved is not easy at all. This is the sketch for the Aqua Tower, and you are going to see it. Now, I'll show the first work that I know of. She was, when she came back from her studies and her work from Rem Koolhaas in the Netherlands and so on, she found a rental place in Chicago, and I read that she built this staircase in the house where she rented a space. Her landlady claimed that she had a feeling that she was going to be, and she was already an architect, quite devoted to architecture. And indeed, this staircase itself, I think it shows already, I would say, great skill.
Excuse me, teacher, but think she might have entered the chat.
Yes, Miss Jean has entered the chat, the conference.
Do you see her name on the list?
Yes, yes.
Really? Okay, then I stop the presentation, and we have to sing happy birthday, and please do not let me down. Please sing together with me and with a better voice than me. So let me stop this. How do I do this? I am not very good at this. I stop the share. Okay, so where is, yes, I see Jeanne Gang. Jeanne, do you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Happy birthday to you. Now, everybody, we have to sing, okay? And please try your best. The Romanians are supposed to have a good voice. Okay, so we start now. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday
Birthday
to
to you.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday
dear Jeanne. Happy birthday
to
to you. Once
you.
again, happy birthday
Birthday
to
to
you.
you.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday to you.
you.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday to
Come on, someone
you,
better than
Miss
me.
Jean.
Please take the lead. Come on, don't be.
It was very beautiful. No, thank you very much. That was so sweet.
Well, it was beautiful because it was imperfect. It might have been like
Yes.
Bobardi, but
Thank you so much.
no, it was very nice of you that you showed up, and maybe I don't know. I am emotional too, and I'm also a bit sick. But I feel you know, maybe my presentation is, I mean, certainly not relevant to you because you know your work much better than I do. So
I totally, I loved hearing you. I wish you didn't know I was here. I was really enjoying listening to it like it's another person. It's great. So thank you.
were you here when I read the poem?
Yes, yes, I heard it. It's beautiful. Thank you so
No,
much.
but I'm sure I got some things wrong because I wrote it based on you know, some memories, and I didn't double check things.
It's pretty good. It was pretty close and pretty accurate. So
okay, I will send you the poem, and please be kind and correct what is to be corrected. Now, you know what was strange, Jean? How do you pronounce actually your name, Jean or Jeannie?
well, in France it's Jeanne.
I know in France, but what about in the States?
No, I was born Jeannie. My parents called me Jeannie, and then everyone said you should change it to Jean when you get more mature, but I never did, so I'm still Jeannie.
Okay, that's excellent. You know what Picasso used to say? He used to say, "It takes a long time to become young."
All right.
I think it is true. Okay, Jeannie, I wanted to ask you something. And now I cultivate spontaneity, but I'm not actually very spontaneous. Maybe someone from, I know a student prepared 2 questions for you if you are so kind to listen to them. And maybe I invite anyone in the audience, if you want to ask, you know, the future Pritzker Prize laureate, Jeanne Gang, a question, please do so. It's an occasion. They are so timid.
I know it's okay. You can continue on. I'll stay on for a while and answer some questions later. But I really enjoyed your presentation. So thank you again, and thanks everyone for the nice song.
Well, it could have been better. Actually, I thought of maybe instead of talking about your work, to talk about, I mean, to make a gesture towards you since it is your birthday. I don't know. I don't take good decisions at this moment. So I'm a little bit embarrassed. But I even thought instead of, but no, it would have been wrong to talk about, let's say, Lina Bobardi instead of you. I will continue. I will continue presenting your work, and if you will continue to be here, please be kind. And if you feel like saying something, please interrupt me, because again, I am not an expert on your work. I studied your work, but I'm not an expert. I don't have a PhD in the works of on the works of Studio Gang. And you probably do have such a PhD. So be kind. If you want, just interrupt me, or if you want to add something, because I talk freely. I don't read. I have more than 300 pictures with your work. I have actually 4 presentations on your work. I chose the one that I just met last night. So I will continue the presentation. In the meantime, maybe some people, at least in the audience, would think of because truly it is an honor for us that you made time to especially on your birthday, to participate. So please, if anyone wants to ask a very, very, very important question, please formulate it in your mind appropriately and do so. Okay. So should I continue with my presentation?
Yes, please.
Okay, I will do so. This creates an additional difficulty for me, but a pleasant difficulty. Okay, sure. Okay, so I talked about this stair, which I already find full of promise, and I think the landlady in the building where you rented a space had a correct intuition. Now this theater, whose name I cannot truly pronounce, Bengtsjöstrom, it sounds like a Scandinavian name. I love Scandinavia, but I don't know any Scandinavian language. Home of the Starlight Theatre, that's better, at Rock Valley College. A brilliant work from 2003. Brilliant because it is static and dynamic at the same time. It is stable and unstable. And I think the conjunction of the two, stability and instability, generates value in many arts and many in life as well. If we could create a balance between the two, but it's not easy. Here it is. It's a building that somehow, because I presented Louis Kahn just a few days ago, well, on the 5th of March. In his case, the roof also, like for the bathroom in Trenton, and also for other buildings. In fact, for many of his buildings, there is a distinct tension in a way, but also a dialogue between the roof and what is underneath it. And I see the same thing here. Wolf Prick said that there are three kinds of architects. The architects who are kind of basement architects, and I think he included Raymond Abraham there. Then architects who are belong to the middle portion of the building, and there he included Stephen Hall. And then the roof people, the roof architects, and he included himself and Zaha Hadid. I don't know about Jeanne Gang. I mean, obviously, the roof has a great importance in her work, especially in this particular building. But it's possible that her work addresses all 3 parts of a schematic as it is of a building. Let's go on. I do believe what Frank Lloyd Wright said, that creativity is exuberance. And when I look at these triangular parts of the roof that can be lifted and uncover the sky, I see an invitation towards just that, towards exuberance. Even if nothing happened on the stage, the roof itself is a show that I think deserves buying a ticket. It is structurally coherent, it is sound, it is functioning, it is dynamic, and as such, I think it is an excellent building. Too bad I didn't visit it when I lived there. It's always like this, we regret not doing things at the right time, but what can I do? Better later than never. At least, we have the chance on the internet to discover things that we didn't know of at other times. Here it is. So again, Jeanne, if you are so kind, if you feel I say something questionable, or if you want to add something, please do so, because I would like this event, and it is an event, to be as rich and truthful and fruitful as possible. Thank you. The adventure, the process of building a building is also important, and I will show other images during this presentation where I also show the presence of the human being contributing to the erection of a building. Most of the time we neglect the coming into being of the building, and I think that is wrong. Because process, at least some people think that process is actually, the journey is actually the goal. But of course, the target has its importance too, the completed building. But the completed building could be sometimes narcissistic and erase the many phases through which a building goes in order to come into being. So look at this. It is beautiful. It is a geometrical flower. It is an architectonic origami. And as I said, in itself, it is a celebration of art, of theater, of dance, of music, you name it. I mean, it looks simple, but ideas, after you have them, sometimes seem to be very simple. Like the apple falling on the mouth of Newton. You would say, what could be simpler? But you have to be Newton, because many people sat or laid under a tree, under an apple tree, and it was just on Newton that apple fell in a certain way. Or maybe apples fell, I imagine they fell on other people's heads, but no one had the ideas that he had. Anyway, moving forward. The Chinese American Service League Kam Liu Center, completed in 2004. I think, in my opinion, and again, I'm not an expert, but I have a feeling that I see a certain sensibility in the work that comes probably from the experience of working with Rem Koolhaas. There is something so-called European, but it is mingled with an American sensibility, and I think the work has this duality in a way which is very valuable. It is a work which belongs well to where it is built in the United States, but it could have looked well also in Europe without this meaning that it is indifferent to the local values of the place where it was built. No, but it is a modernism here that implies or infers a certain, I don't know how to put it, and I obviously am very prone now to saying even foolish things, but I try to be intense, but I also try to be adventurous in a way. I would say that many of her buildings, if they promote something, they promote dialogue, they promote a kind of togetherness, which in my opinion, I didn't see too often in the United States. In the big cities, yes, but the United States is a country where the individuality is very much underlined, but a type of togetherness that is urban, that is, democratic, I don't know very well now how to describe it. This kind of togetherness, this kind of communality is perhaps an attribute that we need more of. And I said this before, and I say it again, that I totally agree with Vincent Scully when he wrote about Louis Kahn, and he used these two words from a famous British writer, Forster, only connect. He wrote about Kahn, and he used this as a motto, only connect. And I would say that this motto also applies to the work of Jeanne Gang and Studio Gang, only connect. And I think her works attempt to connect, to create zones of connection, spaces where various kinds of connection happen or could happen. In this sense, it is an architecture that promotes dialogue, promotes interconnectedness. And we need more of it. Enough with the morose, entities that refuse to communicate. It's true, now we are confronted with social distancing, but I think our desire for communication is even higher. Paradoxically, despite or exactly because of the pandemic, we have now the chance to cooperate and to dialogue, which before we would not have used. Like, for example, our meetings on Zoom. But sooner or later, I hope the pandemic will recede or will be defeated, and some kind of normalcy will come into being. As is known, the human being is a social animal, and as such, only connect is imperative. The SOS Children's Village, Lavesorio Community Center, completed in 2008. I want to say something, and I actually heard myself, Jeanne, saying it. She is not a signature architect, and she is not interested in a style. And I say this to the students, that this is the way to go. Don't try to create a so-called style. Whatever Peter Eisenman might have said, that you have to create a language, and he gave the example of the ex-president of the United States, who created a language, that is Mr. Trump, and that's what Peter Eisenman said, and look, he became the president of the country. I don't know exactly the intricacies of what Peter Eisenman meant by creating a language. In the case of Jeanne Gang, I see that she is not, she doesn't want to create a stylish, highly polished, but in essence frozen language. She's open to experiments depending on the situation. That's why her buildings are very different, and I think this is a good thing. I think truly important architects go beyond style. I don't think any, especially in modernity, I don't think truly very important architects would have liked to be pinned down as belonging to a style. Perhaps not even Mies. Okay, so another work which combines rigor with a certain degree of freedom, and this kind of structure, this V, which could also be seen symbolically in a certain way, but the diagonals are present in the works of Jeanne Gang and Studio Gang in various ways. And I keep saying it, that the diagonal is a tool towards freedom, but also towards non-conformism, but also towards more subtle truth. And because the rationalist likes to think that anything that disturbs the configuration established by right angles and straight lines is enough. But sometimes, and I see this often in her works, the diagonal, it doesn't matter in what way it is used, structurally or the angle of a certain piece of glass. Actually, reality is more complex, and the diagonal facilitates, I think, a truer connection with reality than a very rigid system. There is again attempts to bring res publica, the public dimension of architecture, in as explicitly and also as invitingly and comfortably in certain spaces in her buildings, like you see here. It's a diminution of the rigid boundaries between various functions. And I think if we are able to cross borders within maybe a certain set of framing conditions, we achieve that balance between order and disorder, between stability and instability, and so on. You see even here the diagonals. The diagonals are those that bring dynamism to the space, and you know, the children enjoy it. And I imagine not just the children. By the way of the children and what Picasso said, that it takes a long time to become young, Brâncuș said, and I think we'll arrive at Brâncuș again when we talk about the Vista Tower. But Brâncuș said, when we are not children any longer, we are dead. But Le Corbusier had even a more interesting thought. Le Corbusier said something kind of similar to what Picasso said. He said, he said, the problem in life is not to remain young, but to become young. And I am tempted to think that it is so, because reflecting on my own, on myself, I think I was older when I was 19 than I am now. Now, actually, this doesn't quite make sense, because I keep telling the students that I am 17. Okay, here are the plans of the building. And, you know, like in other important architectures, the public spaces are those where things happen, where the theater of encounters takes place. And those encounters are important. You know, you have the individual rooms, which can be, you know, very, you know, simply articulated or configured, yes, but the public spaces are those where dynamic forms are necessary to express the dynamics of the human encounters. This is also happening in buildings that are known from the history of architecture. I'm just thinking now of Alvar Aalto, but of course not just him. So the building is here, the little red one on the map of the city. So we see already here anticipations at a small scale of architectural gestures that find a more emphatic presence in, let's say, the Aqua Tower, and we'll arrive soon at it. Now, the Columbia College Chicago Media Production Center, completed in 2010. I like this building very much. Is you know, it's when I look at you know, this, there is a lot of glass, but it has an elegance. It is an elegant building, and it is resolutely modern. But it is also, it has color. It is not, it is, Jeanne Gang is not a minimalist. Her architecture is not, does not belong to minimalism. Her modernity is clear cut, so to speak. It is a clear cut modernity. It is a modernity which doesn't accept to be called in any other way. But this being said, there is a subtle clin d'oeil, as the French say, towards other things. And I think it is her ability to connect, again, to connect with a place, to connect, to make connections within her office, between people, between herself and clients, between the city and the building she builds, between her buildings and nature. And I think this disposition towards connecting is a very important one. We need more of it in the world. Also, the presence, the technology is present, the modernity of technology is present, but the modernity of technology is not dwarfing. It is not oppressive. You feel that technology is a means, is not a goal. The means is probably exactly the meaning of those two words, only connect. Maybe that is the goal of all the gestures that are made in these buildings, only connect. At various levels, if we could connect with a tree, if we could connect with the sky, if we could connect with the sun, if we could connect with each other, if we could connect, you know, the builder, the one who builds the building, the one who thinks the building, the architect, the one who pays for the building. If we connect all these things, I think life would be truly a very enjoyable experience. These are functional buildings, but they are not functionalist in that strict sense, which you know, some people might abhor. Also, what we see here, for example, on the ceiling is a tension between two systems, the rectangular one, no, and then the circular one. And I feel that this is present in other works by her. That's why I think that pair of you know, dichotomic terms, idealism and actionable, is expressed in other ways as well in her architecture. Because I think in the attempt to only connect, you have to consider the terms, the individual terms that you are trying to connect, and respect their individuality, and at the same time create the space for the collaboration. In other words, to achieve multiplicity in unity. Aqua Tower, completed in 2010, a famous building in Chicago and in the United States and in the world, the first skyscraper built in Chicago by a woman as lead architect. Now, you know, we are still seduced by this kind of measurements, you know, the first skyscraper, the tallest skyscraper, the tallest man, the shortest man, the tallest woman, the shortest woman. This is about really quantity, but it does say something that in a city which, and I know Chicago, I lived there for a number of years. In my opinion, it was, and maybe still is, a rather patriarchal city. It is a city still dominated by men, in my opinion. So we have to have the highest, you know, appreciation for a woman architect to be able to assert her sensibility, her talent, her vision, her work in a world where still men are, you know, have the upper hand, and this is the truth. So it is remarkable what she achieved, and we should sing again, happy birthday, Jeanne, maybe better than the first time. I know I didn't sing very well then, but look at what she did. She made this skyscraper into an architectonic tree, because we see here is the bark of a tree almost. It's the trunk. She wanted the building to expand, to externalize towards becoming some kind of a geometric tree. And this is remarkable. I mean, look at the building on the left and look at the building on the right. And it took a lady to have this courage. All those pretentious men on pedestals didn't have such a courage. It would not have crossed their minds to do something like this. So we can only salute Jeanne, you know, because we need as many Jeannes, you know, starting with a French one and arriving at Jeanne Gang. We need more of them. And I have a book which is called the 21st Century. It was published in France, actually. The 21st Century, the century of women. I truly believe it is so. The 21st century is the century of women. Even now, at the University of Architecture in Bucharest, there are many more female students than male students. This is a new phenomenon, and I can only salute it, because I think we need the sensitivity of women. We need their voice. We need their perception of things, their vision. Men had enough time to externalize it, and personally, I'm kind of tired of it. So I would welcome this kind of intervention, which comes, you know, unexpectedly, because it's a different kind of sensibility. I mean, look at this. No man would have done something like this in Chicago. No, I mean, Chicago, I'm talking about the city of Frank Lloyd Wright and Louis Sullivan and Miss van der Rohe, not to mention other important architects. But this is bringing fluidity to architecture was radical. And we need more fluidity, and we need more Lao Tzu and his Tao. The power of the weak. Lao Tzu, the great Chinese mystic, said that water appears to be weak because it flows, avoiding the big stones and so on. But actually, and he was right, Lao Tzu, water can erode the strongest rock. In time, water, the so-called weak one, overwhelms the so-called strong one, the rock. And so there is power in the so-called weakness. There is power in this fluidity. It is a power which is maybe less easily observable, but it is a power which we need badly these days. I think we need what the drawing of Jeanne Gang suggested. You remember that first sketch with a maple tree. Yes, if we study nature, we can see that nature didn't work in rigid ways. It is ordered. Order is, as Louis Kahn said, nature is ordered, but it's a subtle order. It is a spontaneous order. That kind of spontaneous order very rarely we achieve. Now, I know that in this case, she had to handle a building that was already designed by someone else. And so she was asked to create an envelope for the building to modify its appearance. And I like this plan very much because what do I see here? I see the male certitude at the center, and I see the sabotaging coming from the female, the veil that creates that ambiguity and complexity that we need. You know, enough with the so-called clarity of, you know, excessive structure and so on. No, there is something very seductive and very necessary about veiling our buildings, at least some of them. Anyway, it was a courageous choice, a courageous gesture, and it was accepted, it was built, and it's for all to see. Now, unfortunately, and this is something that I'm glad Jeanne is here, and I have a problem, but I'm closer to idealism than to realism, so I'm sure I'm limited in my handling of realism. But it does bother me a little bit the speculative actions like here, where Christie's, you know, is marketing an apartment for almost $3 million. And, you know, I don't know. I mean, I understand that, I mean, there are important buildings built in New York or Chicago or many other cities, but truly, are they really connecting in terms of, I mean, you know, such a price would certainly be prohibitive for so many people, for the majority of people. And I wonder if it is not possible to create a significant architecture, but which also would discourage Christie's to make such advertisements for you know, I mean, what can I say? The supermarket is full of things, and I enjoy it, but I am not a great fan of capitalism because I see the speculative actions that take place, and they turn me off, so to speak. Maybe now I don't find quite the right words to say it, but I remember when I lived in New York, I was asked by Shirin Eshat to contribute to a magazine, a New York magazine called New Observations on the issue of biculturalism. biculturalism, and she invited artists and architects who belong to two cultures, like me, coming from Romania and living in the United States. And I wrote an essay called A Cadillac with Horns, where I began by saying that there wasn't such a big difference actually between communism and capitalism, because in communism, king was the political ideology, while in capitalism, king was the consumer ideology. And this excessive consumerism, produce in order to consume, it certainly doesn't have a lot to do with sustainability, with ecology, with the climate crisis, with the rising levels of the seas, with the melting of the iceberg. So I think, and pollution, of course. So I think we have to be careful, because these issues are crucial for the moment. And when I say the moment, I include also the near future. There are realities about the climate change, and this excessiveness that capitalism promotes. I ran away from communism. I didn't like communism at all. I was not part of the structure, political structure, and I ran away from it. But I have to say, in a strange way, capitalism destroyed more the world than communism, because of this maddening production and consume. The highways are filled with cars because cars became very available, and because they are very seductive. Cars need gasoline. Gasoline means war, going to Iraq, people dying. All kinds of tragedies happen because of the voracity of this having and producing and consuming. But what do we see here? We see in a way, this is the world that we lived in until people like Jeanne Gang stepped in. This is a world, of so-called certitudes. This is the world of columns, those columns that Wolf Briggs hated, the columns of authority, the columns of manhood, the columns of war, the predatory columns or whatever. But then Lao Tzu came in, and Jeanne Gang came in, and the bark of the tree came in, and then we see this becoming this. And the superficial observer would say, wait a minute, this is disorienting, this is disorder, this is unclear, no, it's not so. This is life. This is not life. This is life. And so we need this, and we need this. We need structure as well, but we also need, as I try to say in that writing, which maybe inadequately I called, or not sufficiently adequately I called the poem, we need structure and ornament. You would say, where is the ornament here? Well, it is, because there is the movement, this fluidity is some kind of ornamentation. But I know the word ornament has pejorative connotations, but it shouldn't have, because in all architecture, we can start even from the caves, the primeval caves. There were inscriptions on the walls of the caves with spirals and all kinds of graphic signs. So the so-called ancient man also needed ornament. The tree itself needs ornament if we consider the leaves and the flowers in the spring as ornaments. Of course, they have a function beyond the ornamental one, but why did nature generate, as John Ruskin would say, the tail of the peacock? John Ruskin legitimately said, in the world, the most beautiful things are the most useless. And he gave us an example, the lily, the flower, and the tail of the peacock. Now, the functionalists might protest, but beauty is a function as well. To say that beauty is not functional is wrong. In fact, Dostoevsky was right. Beauty will save the world. And if beauty saves the world, then it does have a function, doesn't it? So, you know, again, the rationalist would say this is capricious. It's interesting, but it is capricious. As if the wind is not capricious when it blows from here to there and from there to here. If the movement of the clouds is not capricious, I mean, just look at them on the sky. Baudelaire loved the clouds in his beautiful poem, L'étranger, the stranger. When he was asked, what do you love the most? And in the end said, Les merveilleux nuages, the beautiful clouds, which are quintessences of capriciousness, really. But the rationalistic mind refuses to see the necessity of what is called capriciousness or the beauty of the clouds. And look at this, and look at this, and look at this. This is a society of men, and now a lady in the center dances. She dances for a freedom which the morose ones do not know. The morose ones didn't know. I'm sure White or Sullivan or Mies would have understood Jeanne Gang, but I'm not so sure about the authors of these buildings around it. Anyway, we need a dancing woman, that's for sure. And even Nietzsche said, I would only believe in a dancing God. Maybe he should have said in a dancing goddess. Look at this. I think it's beautiful, you know, because it is bringing back nature, you know, it is bringing back something that was neglected for so long. Anyway, I should rush a little bit because otherwise I will never end. Now, even its name, Aqua Tower, I don't know if Jeanne Gang, maybe she can tell if she was at the origin of this naming, but it's quite appropriately given. Didn't I mention water by the way of Lao Tzu, eroding the stone in all its so-called weakness? Yes, the power of water. Water is magnificent. And water, of course, needs, in its dialectics, it needs fire. Fire and water. We'll see a building that she built for the fire department in New York, where there is a lot of redness, and it's good that there is redness because it is a building having to do with this, with fire. Fire and water. We'll arrive at fire as well. The only complaint I might have is that this tower is now speculated on the real estate market with an eye on money and not with an eye on only connect. But maybe this tragedy is unavoidable. I don't know. Nature Boardwalk at Lincoln Park Zoo, completed in 2010. This is a pavilion, quite large, as you can see. And even here you see some kind of a rebellion against the rationalistic paradigm, although it is rationally conceived, but also its curvatures and its fluidities refer to a different system, so to speak. And here is, you know, the architect. And I'm very happy that she joined us, and I really hope her business does not suffer because of this event. Architecture is beautiful when it is creative and when it is an adventure. And for Jeanne Gang, obviously, it is an adventure. Every problem is new. Every context is new. Every answer or attempt to answer is new. So there is no way for dogma. It has to be a creation. And if it is a creation, then it deserves the name architecture. And I think not just the users are happy, or the client, or the architect, but also those who build it. Because I think it is enlightening and refreshing and fruitful for a builder to know that he or she contributes to the building of an interesting building. A building which is saying yes to life. Boathouse, she built two boathouses, and I like this project very much. It is less so-called organic than some other parts of her work, but it has a subtle connection with what we might call organic architecture, very subtle, but that doesn't mean that it is less significant. Maybe it is even more significant because it is subtle. And you see here already, suggestions of that subtlety, and you'll see the ceilings of the roof, or the roof, which becomes a ceiling inside, that refers to the very boats that the users of these spaces use. It's an interesting building. It is reticent. It is, but because of its triangles, it also has a certain level of exuberance. But it is not, a Dionysian exuberance. It is just as it has to be. It is a architectonic mechanism that houses a function and inspires with that function. It's not just supporting it, measurably, but also immeasurably, if I am to refer to Kant's distinction between the immeasurable and the measurable. In other words, between the need and desire. You might say, what kind of a desire are you talking about here? But there is, and I think in any instance in life, we can talk about need and desire. And it is desire that brings us closer to that actionable idealism that she works for or with. I mean, look at these triangulations that they are invitations in a way to move beyond your limits, to transcend your own limitations. And sport does this, where you fight with your own limitations in order to achieve certain results. It's a very fine building. We see again multiplicity in unity here. It is a unity, but it is not monolithical. It's not frozen in a morose single structure. So there is there are pavilions which interconnect and create a unity in diversity, or a diversity in unity. By the way of this, I have a beautiful book which is called The Sufi Tradition in Persian Architecture, and where you'll see great examples of this quest for multiplicity in unity. You see the ceiling is, the ceiling seems simple, but it's not. I mean, it is and it isn't. It's both. And it's already suggesting to those who use this space a slight deviation from rectangularity. It's really, I would say, a metaphor for a balance between order and disorder, between limits and illimitness, between stability and fluidity. And in this case is the rhythm of waves, the water, the boat. This is what these sportives do. There is geometry here, but it is a geometry which is not static. And it's very subtly done, really. You might not even be conscious of its effects on your imagination or on your mind, but I think you are not indifferent to what is happening there. sorry, the resolution is not great. The Arcus Center for Social Justice Leadership at Kalamazoo College, completed in 2014. Here, this is the building, and she has two schemes where what you see through this side of the building, and then what you see through this side of the building. And so there is a wholeness here, there is a circularity, but there is also the individuality of various views. Now you see, this building is very different from the previous one. So she is not repeating herself. And this, this is not a difficult building, but it is a building that intrigued me when I contemplated its facade here, and I'll arrive at more pictures with what she did here. This covering of the building with wood in this way is very original. I mean, I don't think I ever saw such. Essentially, the wood became a skin. Like a lizard skin has something of a lizard skin, and it's a leather. It's leathered wood in a way. The only thing I hope is that either these fragments of wood were, they belong to what we call discarded wood, and that no trees were cut, because I truly think we shouldn't cut trees at all. They are immensely important for us today, and they were always important, but we neglected them, unfortunately. And we never ask the trees what they feel and think. We just abuse them without, with the premise that they don't think and that they don't feel. But I am not so sure about this. Look at this beautiful picture. It is a beautiful picture. If you didn't know the building, you didn't know what it was. Because yes, the skin of the building is leather-like, but it's not leather, it's wood. And the window that you saw is here. And this is, again, the gathering place. The conference room is the place where people meet to discuss about justice, about what is right, what is correct. What a beautiful theme, justice. We need justice in the world. We need love, of course, but for me, it's mysterious, the relationship between love and justice. At least in my personal life, I found that they very rarely converge, unfortunately. But, and I shouldn't dwell too much on this subject, because I could talk the whole night about this. Anyway, here is the Creator with us, and I'm grateful and I feel honored, but I am sure there are metaphors here and symbols and that I am not aware of, and they are suggested. And if you get it, you get it, and if you don't get it, well, too bad you didn't get it. I asked myself certain questions. Why a certain window is in a certain way, why the plan is, but again, to answer this question, why, in a strictly rational way, is not correct. Because the mechanism of producing creatively something goes beyond strict rationalism. Now, I could perhaps, if I look at this building, I could compare it maybe with certain buildings of the Netherlands, in the Netherlands, and not just in the Netherlands, but this one is different, though. It's true, I know the Jeanne Gang worked for Rem Koolhaas for a certain time, but maybe that wasn't even such an important experience. I don't know, I imagine it was, but what I see here, I see an original work, a work which has some kind of a sensitivity, which in my opinion is not, I see certain influences somehow coming from Europe. But on the other hand, is a building that probably would not have been built quite like this in Europe. I don't know, although it could have been. The most intriguing part is perhaps this skin of the building. Look at this fragment. What are these pieces of wood telling us? Well, I think in short, what we see here is the human society. Really, a city, a village, even a house, a villa, a family. We see the grown-ups, we see the kids, we see the grandfathers, the grandmothers, we see the neighbors. It's really a society of individualities that come together. It's really about coming together. Inclusion, openness, and dialogue. Arcus Center for Social Justice by Studio Gang. What beautiful words and their meanings. Inclusion, openness, and dialogue. We need badly these in our world. And not just now, we needed them, and we need them, and we will need them. Again, because of those only connect. What do we see here? We see again architecture practiced as an adventure, as a creative adventure, as that beginning that Louis Kahn said is in harmony with the human nature. And it moves me. I see these men, they most surely never did something like this before, nor will they do something like this afterwards. This is for them also an adventure. So when the conception is adventurous in the good sense of the word, the construction process is also an adventure in the good sense of the word. And, by doing so, Jeanne Gang asked these grown-up men, and maybe, rather morose, become childlike again, themselves. Because, look at this serious man, with everything on him, with that thing on his head, eyeglasses and so on. He's doing something now like in the kindergarten. He's doing a serious job. He's paid, but he's also playing. He's playing because the architect created a situation in which the morose, serious constructors, builders had to go beyond themselves. I imagine this man when he goes home and talks with his wife, and his wife asks him, "What did you do today?" And he would say, "Well, this strange architect, she had this idea to cover the building with these pieces of wood, and I had to, one by one, to place myself with my sacred hands on which before were used just with machineries, to do this sort of thing. But at first I disliked it, but then I liked it more and more. And now I cannot leave. I would ask other architects to provoke me in a similar way." What is the difference between certainly a skilled worker, right, from the United States, and let's say a villager in an African village who did something similar, not because an architect asked him to do, but because the tradition of building certain buildings was in this way. It's again about conjunction, I look at these workers and I see they could have been in Africa, they could have been in Asia, they could have been in South America, and they could have been in a kindergarten. I think the relationship between work and play is very, very important. And if you don't address the function of the ludic function of life, then you don't really have access to creativity. In a certain way, they are working for the tail of the peacock here. And John Ruskin would smile. What are these men doing? They are measuring, you see, very carefully and very seriously, and they are doing something that really belongs to the peacock's tail, if I am allowed to speak in this way. Anyway, moving forward, it's a rich work and it deserves a lot of attention, but we have still to finish this presentation. We still have a long way to go. The model for slit window and warped wall showing cross sections of trees used for decoration. I don't know the word decoration, but it is decoration, but it's more than decoration somehow. I call this, the tail of the peacock, but it's almost necessary. It's if it is a decoration, it is a decoration that somehow we cannot do without any longer once we know what it is, and once we see what it is. And look at the beautiful trees. I wonder what those trees felt, seeing the brothers and sisters, being used to create a leather-like skin for the building for justice. The proud architecture elevates the act of convening for social justice. Great. So whatever Peter Zumthor might say, that he lost his faith or his belief that architecture can change the world, I don't trust him. The truth is, why do you build, Mr. Peter Zumthor, if you don't believe that architecture can contribute, not perfectly, but in a small measure maybe, but it can and it should. And if it doesn't, why would we continue to build? What is a proud architecture? It's an architecture that has dignity. This is what it is. And if it has dignity, it's already an invitation for social justice. So architecture has to have dignity. Yes, I mentioned playfulness. Sure, it has to be playful, but being playful doesn't mean that you cannot also have, dignity. After all, didn't Jean Nouvel say that he always did architecture with the seriousness of a child who loses himself in his play? So there, you can have the play, but you can also have seriousness. There are often in her works islands of togetherness, of gathering, so to speak, like here. And silently, without words, you understand that this is a place within the larger space where you can sit and talk with other people. Yes, there is a pandemic now, but let's hope the pandemic will go away. Look at these two people. It's about coming together, it's about communicating, it's about dialogue, about conversation, about being more than you are by yourself. I imagine when you are in this building, whatever thoughts you might have relating to justice are encouraged to be not governed by heaviness. Why should justice be punitive or stark? It's about opening your heart in a way. Sorry for expressing myself maybe in an old-fashioned way. Yes, opening your heart. Why shouldn't we open our hearts when we enter a building dedicated to social justice? Maybe more than ever in such a building. Another boathouse. So as I said, they built, Studio Gang, Jeanne Gang built two boathouses. They are similar, but there are two, and this is the second one. I will not insist on it because I already presented in detail the first one. This section, both sections actually, they make me smile because because I see the buildings kind of smiling too, and the people using the buildings, or you know, yes, using the buildings are smiling too, and it's all these activities, the river and the people carrying the boat and the people exercising and the triangle saying hello to the sky and the sun. And am I getting carried away here by emotionalism? It's possible. It's possible, and I don't even practice sports, although I should. But a good architecture is an architecture that says hello to life. And this does. The City Hyde Park, completed in 2016, is a block of flats, an apartment building. Sorry for the resolution. I hope better pictures will show up. As I told you, this presentation deserves to be improved. And hopefully by next year, I will do so. I tried my best this time, but it has some weaker points, and I apologize for that. It was not an easy task, you know, to compress in a presentation for one evening such a rich work. Okay, here we see again this, in my opinion, is not, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong because my perceptions are colored by my own infirmities and my own peculiarities. But I see here a kind of modernity which is not typical or not exclusively North American. And I think it has to do with what I mentioned before, this kind of togetherness that it encourages. You know, this publicness that there is. I mean, when I look here, this horizontal part of the building, again, I think somehow of the Netherlands, but it might be that I think of the Netherlands because I know the Jeanne Gang worked for a while with Rem Koolhaas, so probably in Rotterdam. Anyway, but this kind of multiplicity and unity is shown also in the balconies, in the playfulness of the balconies of the building itself. And they, to me, they are important because you see here variety in unity, diversity. These balconies communicate the need for individuality, but also the need for togetherness. So it's both unity and diversity, individuality and collectiveness or unity. Writers Theatre, completed in 2016. This is another fine building which combines elements of rationalism and no, not rationalism. No, maybe I could say of rationalism of organicism in a way, or maybe I didn't express myself well. But there is a certain complexity. It's a, you know, an architecture that is not trying to confuse. But there are elements of ambiguity a little bit. And this ambiguity creates that in-betweenness that Sue Fujimoto talked about. And these spaces which are between function and no function. And those spaces are very, very rich in potentialities. I like this building. I know a critic should never say something like this, but I'm not a critic. So I should be forgiven. I had these pictures before, sorry. Now, I wonder what the effects of the pandemic would be on the architecture of someone who worked within the field of bringing people together, of connecting. And unfortunately, for the moment, we connect, but with masks on. So maybe addressing the mask in architecture might not be easily avoidable now. Solstice on the Park is another building with apartment buildings. You can see the Jeanne Gang is not neglecting at all the trajectory of the sun on the sky, which after Copernicus, we think it is apparent. And it's not just about the sun. You will see that she is concerned, she was concerned and is concerned about, again, having an architecture that is responsive to the elements, and the sun is maybe the most important, or certainly, yeah, the most important. So the angle of these windows, the studies they made in their office was that these windows receive the solar light in optimal conditions if they are not vertical, but at a certain angle. I forgot exactly, 71 degrees or something like this. You can, again, today, in the present, what I can do perhaps is to inspire towards investigating, because you can find the information now on the website. There is the website of the office Studio Gang. You can find, if a certain work interests you, you can find detailed information about that work. My attempt is to, on one hand, celebrate, and on the other hand, generate inspiration, if possible. If I can achieve this, I feel I earn my day, so to speak, if I can achieve this. Rescue company. Now this is the fire. Well, it's for the fire department of New York. I mentioned this work located in Brooklyn's Brownsville neighborhood. The new rescue company facility is designed as a tool for training, enabling federal fire department New York's elite force of specialized rescue workers to stage and simulate a wide range of emergency conditions in, on, and around the building. And look at this, it's different. I mean, it's the work of the same architect, and yet it is different. And it is, I read that the New Yorkers love this kind of architecture, and I know they do. And in this case, it is simply evoking, as Kant said, form evokes function. The redness evokes fire. And these people, this is their job, to handle fire. But you see, it's not just about the fire, it's about the sunlight, and we see the cloud that sends rain, and I don't know exactly what those arrows, curved arrows, kind of exalted mean, but all in all, it's an architecture of interrelations and interconnections. On the exterior, red glazed terracotta panels surround a smaller scale series of voids, windows and doors, with highly crafted details animating these points of connection between the facility and the community it serves. So even at the level of the so-called detail, even the fact that why did she use red glazed terracotta, that beloved terracotta that Louis Sullivan used? Well, terracotta is, in its materiality, implies fire. I have, in fact, a PowerPoint presentation called Architecture and Fire. Ceramics employ fire. It's earth that is, processed through fire. So terracotta, so the fire here is present not just through the color red, but also through these terracotta tiles. Excellent work. Discreetly done. There is no demagogy here. There is no extravagant rhetorics. It's just there are suggestions without words about the function of the building. In other words, the form evokes the function. And it's an optimistic architecture. I would say that the architecture of Jeanne Gang is an optimistic architecture. I have a presentation also called Architecture and Fire, and redness. I'm very sensitive to redness, but I love that red wall there. and then the window breaking the continuity of the surface, as if that is the success of the fireman, breaking the fire. 10th Avenue, New York City, sculpted by, this is a great work, and it is a recent work, more recent work, sculpted by the angles of the sun. Solar Carve explores how shaping architecture in response to solar access and other site-specific criteria can expand its potential to have a positive impact on its environment. Located at the edge of Manhattan between the Highline Park and the Hudson River, the building takes its unique form from the geometric relationships between the allowable envelope and the sun's path. A dialogue again, only connect. And you see that the trajectory of the sun is already, enjoying, in a way, contributing to the building underneath. And it's this dialogue with the elements that brings joy and unity, wholeness. Buckminster Fuller said that the environment or environmentalism has a problem, because the environment is everything outside of us, without us. I mean, it's just what is outside of us. But cosmos or cosmic is everything outside of us plus us. And I think such an architecture, which without even knowing, you might say this is, you might know why, you might not know why this is done in this way, this unusual way. But when you look at the clouds, at the light of the sun, somehow it makes sense. You almost feel a dialogue, and it is a dialogue here. It is a dialogue. The building is an homage to the sunlight. It accommodates, it invites even, it's embrace, its force. It is allowing the sun to become a sculptor. The building says, okay, I am the prism, which I am submitting myself to you, Your Majesty, the sun, to carve me. And the sun does carve it. It's a great homage from an architect, from a human being, to the great sun. Analysis shows that the solar carved building form on the left, I'll show you the diagram from over Arup, allows more sunlight to reach the high line than the allowable envelope. Now, you see, I don't know, I'm not very good at analyzing anything. I'm a little bit at attempting synthesis, but at analysis, I was not always very good. But those of you who are more rational than I am, I'm sure you understand if you compare the diagram on the left with the diagram on the right. All in all, this is the attempt of engineering to discover or to analyze what the intuitions of the architects already knew. As I wrote in a small little poem, if I can call it so, a haiku poem many years ago, and I was accused of being a sexist, I said, the hands know what women know, what men and words try to know. So, the intuition of the hand, because I think the hand has its own intelligence, or the intuition of women, which in my opinion is superior to the intuitions of men, they are superior to what men and words try to do. Anyway, so there, here, diagonals again, and the contemplative man. Life can be poetical if we allow that idealism that Stephen Hall suggested, that if there is idealism in us, we should express it. So if there is idealism in us, we should express it, but with care, so it doesn't get lost, because it is very easy for idealists to get lost. That's why it needs to be grounded. It needs to be actionable, as Jeanne Gang would say. And you can see she builds, she knows how to build. I talk, for me it's easy, I just talk. Well, I'm not happy about it at all, but for the moment I talk. But I know one should act, one should know, and one should do. Knowing and doing at the same time, and it's not easy. But this is the challenge. I call it positive erosions. I once wrote about the positive erosions in the works of Carlos Carpa. Here also it is an erosion, but it is a positive erosion. It is an erosion which actually amplifies the richness of the building instead of decreasing it. Now the Vista Tower, which was, we are approaching the end of the presentation. The Vista Tower was built, I almost said Vista Towers because there seem to be 3 towers, and I think the Romanians should be proud of seeing this building, because there seems to be, and I don't know if Jeanne Gang, maybe she can tell if she knew that Brâncuș at one point made some sketches for an apartment building in Chicago inspired by the endless column. Because I see here, I particularly like this view from here. It is impressive, and these 3 parts of the building, it's one building, but it has 3 parts, are slightly suggesting some kind of a resemblance or connection with the endless column by Brâncuș. But if Jeanne Gang didn't know that Brâncuș was invited at one point to imagine an apartment building in the shape of the endless column in Chicago, then it is even more striking, the coincidence. And of course, we invite her to Târgu Jiu, to Romania, to see the endless column and the gate of the kiss and the table of silence, which I myself didn't see. But I would gladly be a guide for Jeanne Gang and the group of people who might accompany her. Maybe she would come with Stephen Hall, because Stephen Hall told me that he wants to come with his wife to see the endless column. Anyway, so look at this. Look at these towers that you know, proclaim, yes, proclaim force, proclaim, you know, the power of doing, proclaim inspiration, proclaim audacity, more audacity, I would say, than these buildings. These buildings, I don't know. And it's not because it is taller. That's not why I say it proclaims audacity. It's something about the spirit of the buildings. And there are also these reflections, which in my opinion are poetical. Now I love this picture. It's itself very poetical with the top of the tower. Now, how Jeanne Gang made time to be here today with us, I don't know. But as Kenneth Frampton once told me, Dan, nobody has time. You make time for what you want to do. And as such, we have to be very grateful for her. To her. Richard Gilder Center for Science Education is the American Museum of Natural History, which I don't know if it will be completed into, well, I don't think it was completed. I'll show you some images, and I presented it also in another presentation about the cave revival. And I like this building very much. And you can see it's the same architect who built the Vista Tower. You would say it is not possible. Well, it is possible, just like it was possible for Eero Saarinen to build a TWA terminal and also build you know, other buildings that have almost nothing to do stylistically with the building I just mentioned. This is the architect who did that sketch of the maple tree that we saw at the beginning of the presentation. And here is these are the twisting architectures that could belong both to a tree or to a world once dominated by dinosaurs. So there seems to be a connection between the type of architecture chosen for this place and the function of this place. I keep telling the students, and I keep telling myself, a work which is significant, which is rich, which is creative, is inspiring. And I keep quoting from Einstein, although at one moment I even thought I was born to be in a polemic with Einstein, but in terms of education, I totally agree with him. He said creativity is contagious. Pass it on, and I believe it is so. And when I look at these works, I see an invitation towards creativity, because the maker of this work was creative, and the big yes to life that this works. I cannot say whispered, but that this work says is one that touches me, and it makes me say the same thing. Yes to life through creativity. 100 above the park in St. Louis to be completed. It's in a previous presentation I only had a project. Now I see it's already it's probably in the final phases of its coming into being. Geometry, again, it is geometry, but it is a geometry which refuses to be stuck, to be rigid, to be stiff. And the rhythm of growth, because in a way it is about this. We saw the rhythm of the waves in the case of the boat houses. We see here a different kind of rhythm, a rhythm of vertical waves, if you want. So it is about growth, about becoming. And I think a good architecture, and I think Jeanne Gang's architecture does this, marries being with becoming. And this is very difficult, but it's very important to attempt to do both, being and becoming at the same time. And as you can see, ornament is showing up. I attended actually a lecture by Jeanne Gang many years ago in Chicago, which was about the ornaments of Louis Sullivan, because Louis
Sorry
Sullivan.
to interrupt, but
Pardon?
Mr. Jeanne said that Miss Jeanne said that she has to leave soon. So if there are any questions, she would like to answer them now.
Sure. I'm glad you told me this. So I stopped now. So if she has a few more minutes, and if any of you would like to ask her a few questions, and if she's kind to spend a few more minutes with us, let's do it.
So can I have a question, please?
Could you please activate the video so we can see you, and we can also see it? Oh, thank you. Please.
Okay, so well, I'm so very excited to ask a question at this moment. So frankly speaking, I was only seeing on the YouTube, but I'm so excited. But the question is, what's the opinion or vision about the future architecture trends after this difficult time? I mean, at the COVID pandemic's time, regarding just like styles and also the techniques. This is the first question for you.
Is the question, did you say what is the role of architecture after the pandemic?
Yeah. So the fact is, this 21st century is being just like sustainable architecture, the zero carbonate architecture is considered like this. But I don't know if where we have to go on forward, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I think is really interesting is we found out that everyone can act together. I mean, not 100%, of course, but we act very fast to respond to an emergency. And so I think that gives us a good sign that we can act together to respond to the climate emergency that Professor Coma spoke about. And we need to do that. So I think that spirit is there. That was a good result. In terms of architecture, I think we really have to think about again the invisible air. How I'm glad in many of the projects that we're doing, we now have our sustainable approach, let's say delivering the air from below using less energy. but that has always been rejected because it's too expensive or something like that. So now I see that there's much more, the clients are more willing to do things to make a healthier environment now. So that's also, I think, a positive shift. But I think there could be some interesting inquiry about how does space and air interact in terms of the shape of space, and how it's ventilated. There's a very good book, old book by Victor Olegay, who wrote about, these subjects a long time ago in the 60s. But I think this could be a good time to revisit.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer.
And thank you for the book references. I was writing down some of your references when you were speaking about the books on the Sufi tradition and architecture. Some other ones you mentioned, I wrote down, which are like, it's always good to utilize research and books, and there's so much in, especially old books, you can find a lot.
I would like to ask you, before you leave, if you allow me, maybe predictable and maybe even, I don't know, a questionable question. Something Brinkush was asked towards the end of his life. He was asked, which bird do you like the most? Because he sculpted 27 birds in flight, or gold birds and so on. He named two. He couldn't name one, meaning he didn't yet arrive at that ideal bird in flight that he was searching for. So my question for you would be, which building of yours do you like the most?
I was getting ready to answer the bird question, because I am a very big fan of birding as well. But let's see, the building I like the most. Well, I think
from your own work.
Yeah, from my own work. That's,
I mean, the one that you identify the most with, if possible.
Well, probably I really liked the Arcus Center, which is a building that it uses the wood in a sustainable way, like it's using it for insulation and structurally standing up, not only ornament, it is part of the wall, and also the function inside, that where students are working toward social justice. So that really makes me feel good about the architecture. And I think I'm also really excited about the museum that you showed. Just I like, it's hard to say because
you like all of them probably, sure.
Yeah, every building is like, I always think of it like trying to ask a question, what is the question that this building needs to address? And and so even if it's a tall tower where you mention, there is a lot of speculation, and it's like in some respects a representation of what is capitalism, but at the same time it's also a home for people that live there, and not all of the homes are big expensive ones, sometimes very small apartments that people live in. And so how do you make life in a tower, which can be very separated from the outside? How do you connect it better and connect people to each other and to their environment? So yeah, that's the question to answer about towers, I think. So each project has a question that is driving it.
By the way of the houses, I remember when you told me about the need for houses near Saint-Denis in Paris. What do you build in Paris or in France?
Oh, in Paris, we're working on a center for the University of Chicago for students that are traveling to do their European studies. So it's a kind of a university building. That's our first project that will be there. So it's in construction, so it's happening, but it's really like a very compact site, and it's a vertical campus. So, you know, the whole campus is in one little building. So it's a nice project that I'm really excited about. What interesting there is really knowing that the stone that you can use in Paris is, it actually, even though it's a non-renewable resource, it actually is quite low in terms of carbon when you consider the availability and how close it is to the site. So we're working with some of that limestone that is nearby.
Is it close to Saint Denis?
No, I'm
To the
interested.
church?
No, I haven't built in Saint Denis. I'm interested in Saint Denis just as a place. It's so full of life, and I've been visiting there every time I go to Paris, and so I was thinking of maybe giving some of my students a project to do there. We did look at this with the students at Harvard, I guess a renovation or a readaptation of a building in Paris La Défense called the Le Daumier project, which was scheduled to be torn down. It's a brutalist building, and the students looked at, you know, how to reconceive that building for a new use in making Paris La Défense more of a mixed, vibrant place and less just only office buildings. So that was interesting also.
You know, to the question, which building do you like the most? I expected you to say the one I didn't do yet.
That's a better answer. I mean,
well, no, but
like always, so it's so fun to build and to see building come to life. But then there's also like the aspect of regrets, like that it didn't answer some, you know, specific question. So there's something to do the next time for sure. But I do have to go, but I want to thank you so much for this birthday present.
Well, truly, the one who gave a gift, it was you. You gave us a gift through your presence. And I'm sure everybody here is very thankful to you. And not just those of us who are here, but also those who will see the recording. Thank you very much, Jeanne.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Happy birthday to you again. Bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye. Okay, are you still here? Everybody else? I will not continue. In fact, I was very close to the end of the presentation, but I think it was a nice evening. You know, having the chance to have with us Jeanne Gang, and you know, hopefully we can create similar events in the future. I plan to create a symposium where I will invite all the recipients of the other Pritzker Prize, that is Stephen Hall, Wolf Prix, Thomas Main, Bernard Tschumi, Eric Cowan Moss, Peter Eisenman, and who knows who else will get this useless, but maybe not so useless prize. Anyway, I don't know if you are still interested to see. I think I have only one or two more works to show, and in fact, do you want me to end the presentation or not? It takes 5 minutes.
I would say let's continue the presentation until the end.
No, I didn't say the Pritzker is useless, although it might be. I said the other Pritzker, the price I offer. Anyway, you don't know probably about it. So okay, let me finish. I'll finish very soon, and it's I think good to kind of finish what we start. Although I'm not so good at this at the level of my own life, but anyway. So this is a tower she is building in St. Louis, and you see, as I mentioned, the growth, the rhythm, the vertical rhythm, which uses geometry as well. And now Mira in San Francisco, It is a twisted tower. Of course, twisting is used by other architects these days. Frank Gehry used it, Bjarke Ingels used it, and then the Med used it, the Med architects. But this is the tower she built in San Francisco. Again, how do we explain that an architect who is obviously so busy as she is? I mean, even today on her birthday, you know, she has a family, you know, it's lunchtime, it's her birthday. And this lady was kind enough to be with us for a long time today. And I wish more architects from within the country and from outside the country would be equally generous with that with their time, for the sake of coming together and learning. Now, this kind of building you cannot do if you do not use digital technologies at an advanced level. You can't. You just can't. That's why I keep saying to the students, study, study, study the newest and the most sophisticated digital technologies. Without them, you cannot have access to levels of accomplishment which other people arrive at. California College of the Arts in San Francisco campus. This is, I was a little bit confused. I think these are just renderings, but they are so splendidly done that I'm not sure. I don't think the building was built because I did some research, but it looks like it was built. I mean, I can't believe this is a rendering. Maybe it's not a rendering, but from what I know, it was not yet built. Anyway, in fact, if we do rendering so splendidly, maybe we shouldn't even build. We shouldn't build any longer. The rendering should be enough. And we should use the renderings to inhabit the buildings imaginatively through imagination. And in this way, we don't consume any resources. Unfortunately, we don't, this is the last work. One Delish, and I'm glad she left a little bit earlier because I don't know how to pronounce this devilish Canadian word, Delille, maybe in French, Delille, but Toronto is not Montreal. Anyway, one Delille, Toronto is pre-construction, meaning this is the project, is a tower. And again, you know, this lady architect who was with us for almost 2 hours is building it. And you saw she built other things, not little things. I so regret that the professors here were not present here too. You know, I'm very disappointed actually, and I actually do not comprehend to have the chance to have with us an architect of her accomplishments. I mean, in 2019, she was considered the most influential architect in the world, and none of the professors thought of having the curiosity to be present, as far as I know. I find it very disappointing. And on the background of that disappointment, your presence is even more to be applauded, and I thank you for it. Because I was afraid there would be just 5 people, you know, as many times to my presentations are. Anyway, I think this is no, it's not the last image. This is the last image of the presentation, and the architect was our guest today, is the one who is building this tower here. Thank you very much. And again, happy birthday, Jeanne Gang.